Hello and welcome to my video on Thursday the 12th of March 2026, and we're videoing this in the offices, the inner city council estate offices from the estate in North Manchester on a very windy, cold, almost rainy, normal north of England weather. And today I just want to follow up on a few things I said in a couple of my earlier videos. The Prince and the Pauper and the Pimp, the death of democracy, which was about the UK government's knowledge about Jeffrey Starmer, about Jeffrey Epstein, was well before 2012 and was from documents we've seen this week, apparently in 2002. Now, I've always stated that Sir Keir Starmer was only given the Director of Public Prosecution's job to protect Prince Andrew. Mandelson acknowledges that Epstein knew the Duke of York in 2002, and I'm also adamant that our intelligence services and obviously his armed guard who was protecting Prince Andrew, who went everywhere with him, and they would have been on the island with him, so they seen what was going on. So we knew all about Jeffrey Epstein, you know what I mean? And then it turns out that we've now got Mandelstein involved, who happens to be a good friend of his. And to me, this just makes Sir Keir's statement that, oh, he didn't know this and he didn't know. He knew fucking everything. He knew what was going on before he got the DPP's job. And he also knew, if you disregard that, he knew in a minimum in 2010. But like I say, I'm adamant. Starmer worked with Tony Blair's wife for 10 years. They was best mates. They did the ECHR together. I know that. I've always thought that. And I always know deep down that that's the case. So, to put it simply, Mandelstein was Epstein's right-hand man in England. And if we just think that Mandelstein is the only one corrupted by Epstein, then we're sat here with blinkers on, because there's not a chance. And I even think that Mandelstein maybe pervade whatever he did for Starmer's sexual desires. And I connect them to by the fact that the Ukrainian models from a year ago, where he set fire to his old car, his old house, and an house from the Lord Harry decade, 1990s, where I believe Starmer met in 1990 when he was working for Liberty. Now, what I do want to say is that it's about time, not this government, because the government's corrupt, yeah? It's as simple as that. All the people who have been in Parliament for anything over 2 or 3 terms are corrupt. You just look at, you know, no one talks about the wealth of people. When people come into Parliament, they basically either just upper middle class. And by the time they leave, they may be millionaire class. Not maybe, they are. The millionaire class. And they earn money by passing on information. Just straightforward conversation, information. But knowing full well what you're doing. So, all I can suggest is that we can't do nothing. I've told you, democracy doesn't work. Never has done, never will do. We cannot get rid of Sequoia or any of his cronies. We have to wait till they cock up and then hopefully they'll leave themselves. But most of them have cocked up and they've not left. And with a bit of luck, all the geopolitical events that are going on at the moment concerning the USA, Iran, China, India, Russia, Ukraine. I know it's a lot to ask for and wish for, but, don't you wish that you just could rely on the people in government to represent the population as a whole, not as individuals, Just because you're rich, you deserve better treatment than the guy who's got nothing. But all these so-called people who believe in Christianity, what was it Jesus said? The guy who gives up his last penny to charity has got more chance of getting into heaven than the guy who shows off giving the £1,000. So just remember that it's not always what it's made out to be. Now again, look who keeps popping up in the news. Tony Blair, Mandelstein, Sequoia himself, and they call it inability to make his mind up. He's never been anyone who can make his mind up. I believe he's a fraud. He's not been... He's been moulded into what he is, not groomed. Groomed is too easy for Starmer. He was moulded and made into what he is now. And when you take his right-hand man away and his right-hand communication director away, look what we're left with. Someone who can't make a decision, and he calls that decision, strength. But again, let me just tell all the people in this country what's going to happen in the next few months. We had to go through a series of austerity measures, yeah? Well, the next ones that come, they're going to be a lot worse than the last lot. Now, inflation's going sky high. It happened the last time there was a war started with Ukraine. Inflation up. And then when inflation's that high, interest rates have to come up. And they hope that it brings inflation down. And then when inflation gets down, they'll start bringing interest rates down. So for anyone who's on a fixed rate, and try and extend it for as long as you possibly can. Because even if you lose a few points here and there on the interest rate, I think overall you'll do a lot better than the people who are just paying ad lib, and are paying the interest rate as and when it is. And believe me, it's going to go higher. Everything's going to get a lot more expensive. So in 2024, when you could sort of look after yourself for a day for a fiver, let's say a tenner, it's now going to cost you 20, 30 quid for that same day for the same things. That cost you between a fiver and a tenner in 2023. I don't know where it's going to go or where we're going to end up. Hopefully, I hope we end up being able to stand up ourselves as a government and as a country as a whole, and that the government represents the feelings of the people and the will of the people. Maybe I'm maybe I'm a romantic. I doubt it. But this is the first now of a fresh set of videos I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna go in a little bit more depth about the British government's role in the Epstein-Mandelstein saga, even down to Tony Blair, because as we all know, he was the most he was uncorruptible, the lad you know, and he met Epstein in 2002, and by 2003 he's lying like there's no tomorrow to create war in Iraq. Remember, Israel, 7 wars in 7 years, eh? Iraq was on there, as well as Iran, Syria. So, let's see, eh? But I promise you, stay tuned, like, subscribe, and if you want, share. But you'll get all the news and the latest and most downright truthful news from the estate, from the inner city council estate. And take care, and hopefully we can get this message out to a lot more people who can put in a lot more safeguards to protect themselves financially, physically as well. But, you know, let's try and do what we think we can. Yeah? Bye-bye, and I'll speak to you soon.